Coming to you live from the One More I'm Out of Here / Legal Shift Studios. We are back at you with another episode of the One More I'm Out of Here podcast. Sunday edition. Who Day edition. Bengals won.
Yay,
finally.
Yay.
Jesus Christ.
Is that 2 in a row now?
Yeah.
What is that?
Oh, yeah, we're 2 in a row.
Going to the Super Bowl. Who
Jesus,
cares?
these
I'm kidding.
idiots. God damn it. And even still, they should have won way bigger than they did today. But it's a win. I'll take it.
It's a win. Stop being greedy.
I'm not being greedy.
Don't be greedy.
Andrew,
we got a great show tonight.
Oh, dude,
I'm excited.
It actually worked out perfectly.
Why do I have? Oh wait, hold on. I got to vote. I got to
mute your volume down.
Well, I'm trying to get my dad to make sure my father can see this. So whatever. I'm excited tonight. You want to know why I'm excited? Because we have a great guest we're bringing on that we are going to be talking about timely information that I think will affect and people need to know about for this election coming up.
They need to hear it. And it doesn't matter where you live. This is local to us, but it doesn't matter where you live.
No. We've seen story after story how this is happening all across the United States. And so just you want to give the backdrop on this. Yeah.
So this is our guest is a buddy of mine that I've known for many years. And I'm going to give him both of his titles, I guess, township or village administrator / fire chief. But we're going to bring in Doug Wiemeyer into the house. Hey, welcome, my man. I appreciate you coming on.
Welcome, sir.
Happy to be here.
So the way this came about is yesterday I asked Andrew if he wanted to do a podcast tonight, and he said yes. And I'm scrolling through Fox News, and all of a sudden I see your mug.
I'm sorry.
And I'm like, holy shit. Doug Wiemeyer has made it. Big national time. Celebrity.
Big
Fox
time.
News. But talking about a very, very pertinent subject that we have talked about many times.
Yep.
And we're talking about, the migrants that are coming in, the illegal aliens, whatever you want to call them, whatever the term may be.
Now, let's start with this. How long have you been that dual purpose title that you have? You're not only fire chief, but you're also the administrator of a fairly small. Is it a township there, or is it just a city? What is it?
It's a village.
It's a village.
Okay.
Right? So the village of Laughlin is about 3,500 residents. Okay. I've been the fire chief since actually it's 3 years ago, 2-3 days ago, right? So came back to work for him part-time as the fire chief. Community I grew up in, fire department I started in, literally 3 years old, running around the firehouse like a little brat. Doing that thing as a second, my dad was a fire chief there, firefighter, then fire chief, and the second generation firefighter there. And the opportunity came to switch to Laughlin full time, and I did that the first part of the year. And then our administrator sought employment in another community, left that job open, and after a search for a village administrator, the mayor and I had a conversation, and lo and behold, I'm the fire chief and administrator. So it works well, right? I mean, we've got some great department heads. The police chief does his job. The public works and water department, administration, finance director are all doing their thing. So there's days it makes it easy, and then there's days that we'll get into like tonight that these type of topics put a lot of work on it. And there's a certain number of hours in the week. We put those hours in, and then we pick it back up again next week.
Now, based upon the Fox News article, and we've asked you, is it accurate? And you said you're fairly pleased with it. I mean, they hit everything accurately. Roughly in your community, 30 plus or minus 3,500 people.
Right.
Looks like that the Mauritanians, I guess that's correct.
Yep.
The Mauritanians, which if folks don't know, Mauritania is one of the poorest countries on the continent of Africa. And from the research I've been able to do, it is a predominantly, I'm just giving history here. I'm not making any judgments. I'm just telling folks what the people of Mauritania, what their history is. It's a predominantly Muslim country. They speak Arabic. I guess that's the official language. And it is a very, very poor country. Now, in 2022, in the United States last year, according to the Fox News article, actually it was according to the Washington Post, 543 migrants came from Mauritania to the United States. Okay. That's 2022. 2023, just to give people an idea, 3,500 people came to the United States from Mauritania. That is a increase of a whole bunch. Now,
that's Papa's math.
that's my math,
which we love.
And I don't have my shoes off yet, but I can get them off to help me count that high. However, of those 3,500, 2,700 of them came to Ohio. And of that 2,700 number, so roughly 1,350, if my math is correct, settled here in Cincinnati. Now, you are a community there of roughly, let's remind folks, you're a community there in Cincinnati, right next to Wyoming, right? You're right next to Wyoming.
Wyoming, Woodlawn,
yeah,
Evendale,
and Reading.
Reading.
You have, of your 3,500 residents, you've now seen an increase, plus or minus, because who knows, right? Of 1,000, 1,300, who knows how many people are in your community? Can you is that accurate, sir?
Yeah, it's accurate. I mean, we don't really have a very good way of tracking it. We've done some work in some of the apartment complexes where we know that they're living, and there's days it looks like there's a lot more than 1,500.
Okay, and are they just I want to make everybody understand, we're not talking here just because we get a lot of misinformation, and we don't want to be accused of that.
Correct.
These are legal migrants that have been brought in by the United States government, much like the Haitians were brought in legally under a temporary protective order or status issued by the Biden administration. Do you know what these folks' status is? Do you know what under what auspices they were brought into the United States?
The best of my understanding right now is that they're seeking asylum, that they had crossed the border and immediately went the route of asylum and pled their case to get that process started in the United States. I wish I had a better answer than that. We have been working through every politician we can get a hold of that represents the village of Laughlin in the state of Ohio, both at the state and federal level, to get a better answer on that. We continue to work with the governor's office, with his Southwest Ohio representative, to get a better answer than that. And I'm really not quite sure we have that.
Okay. And so,
and I can say, like, I mean, Doug and I have known each other for a long time and work closely together. You work for Laughlin, but I don't necessarily say where I work for, but
right.
But I also used to work part-time for Laughlin.
Yep.
And I have made runs into the apartment complexes that you speak of. I've been there. I've seen it.
Right.
And I get it. Like, your Fox interview was spot on.
I want to, and we'll post a link to the Fox interview. As a matter of fact, I shared the Fox interview today for my millions of followers, but that's neither here nor there. My question, I just have a series of questions, if I might. And,
absolutely.
And I appreciate you being on here. Did you get ahead? I'm just struggling because I'm trying to think of it as when I was a trustee, how I would react. Did you get a heads up from the federal government or the state government that your community of 3,500 people was about to see a massive influx of immigrants?
Not only did we not get any type of notification from anybody, I would say it's quite fair to say that the state of Ohio first learned of it when we notified them.
You got to be kidding me.
When we told them that there's a problem.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you're just sitting there, right? So you're at work, you're doing your job every day, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, something's going on here. There's a lot of folks that don't look like they're from here and are maybe having language problems. I don't know what their customs might be, but you obviously, like I said, when you have almost a 50% increase in your local population as a local resident and someone that's involved in his community extensively, you noticed right away. And can I ask you, sir, what have you witnessed? I mean, tell me what you've been seeing on the ground here, because the reason I'm asking you, and I don't mean to be asking silly questions by any stretch. But, I think our listeners and I think folks out there don't understand. You see this stuff on the news and you don't begin to get a grasp of what it's like to live this every day, to have your community that you pay taxes on and provide social services and public services for. Have you witnessed, is that straining your local system there?
Yeah, absolutely. To go back a little bit, so I started back at Lockland in 2021, and it's fair to say they were there ahead of that, right?
Okay.
So you gave some stats over the last 3 years, and I would say, based on what we've seen, that looks pretty accurate with the flow of additional immigrants coming in. And again, like you, I mean, I'm not sure what the political term is. I'm not sure what the correct term is. Immigrant.
Yeah, I don't know if they. You're not
typically
sure
what I've used. So
you're not sure if they were brought here on visas or if they simply applied for protected status once they crossed the border.
The best that I've been able to get out of representatives from their community in our town is that they come here seeking asylum. So again, going back, so I started back in 2021. It was very evident that there was a problem at that point, and the village had been dealing with it at some level prior to that.
Well, in 2022, we only had all of 2022. The whole United States only had 543 Mauritanians come here. So this really started, seems like it must have gotten really bad last year that you really noticed a big influx.
Much worse last year, right? So there was a time, going back far enough, I grew up in the town, graduated from the high school, and lived there until, I don't know, 2004 probably. There was a town that there was a time that there were other Africans that were in the community that worked at a warehouse, or a processing center that was there.
Okay.
I would say at this point they've all moved on. That center is closed and they've moved on to other things.
Okay.
Those guys were working in the community. Those guys were providing tax, paying income tax in the community, and were giving back to what they were. And that's not where we're at now.
Right.
The group that's here now, again, the best that we were able to determine, because there's nobody there to help. There's nobody there to provide this information. And we're starting to reach at the federal level to try to get some better answers to it. But as the Mauritanians come to town, they're not allowed to work illegally in the United States. And there's up to about an 18-month period of time.
They don't have a work permit?
No.
So how are they
18-month period of time until they get that work permit.
So how are they being, what are we, wait, hold on a second. Just give me a second. Because
no, you're not going to like my answer, but go ahead.
I think I know what your answer. I have a funny feeling I know what your answer might be. Okay. So, how are they getting money to live? And tell me they're just getting a check from you and I and Uncle Sam.
Well, that there would be the assumption, right? So until we get that direct answer, which I don't know that we ever will, it's an assumption, and it may go a little bit to why they live like they do right now.
And how is that?
So they're living in an apartment complex. The apartment complex, a 2-bedroom apartment, should have about 4 people in it, tops. Maybe 5 if your brother-in-law sleeping on the couch, kind of thing, right? When we understand all that,
yeah,
house, right? So 4 people.
Let's say 4 or 5, okay,
right? And that's not what you find.
What are you finding?
I mean, what we're finding is 8, 10, maybe 12 in an apartment. I mean, I'll come into work and there'll be a young firefighter, paramedic, or firefighter EMT getting ready to get off shift. He's like, "Hey, Chief, can I talk to you?" And this guy's head's down low, and he really looks like he's pretty beat up. I'm like, "Yeah, what's going on, man?" He's like, "I just want to let you know I stepped on some patient's head last night."
Excuse me?
You did what? He's like, "I stepped on a patient's head last night." I think, a patient's head? Well, not really a patient. We were treating the patient, and I was walking across the living room floor, and I walked across this guy sleeping on the floor.
Oh, my God.
And they pull the blanket back, and there's 4 or 5 more of them.
Oh, my God.
So, that's the situation, right? So you have a 2-bedroom apartment that it appears that they sleep in shifts. And if you walk into the first bedroom, there's maybe 2 twin or queen size beds on the floor, and then some 55-gallon polymer containers that would look like it's a hazardous material. It's not. It's their clothes, and it's how their clothes are shipped here. And then you go to the next bedroom, and there's, another maybe queen size bed with a twin size bed, mattress on the floor. Bed's not the right word, but a mattress on the floor, and a group of them sleeping there. And then the rest of them don't have a mattress, just kind of find their way on the floor, whether it's in the hallway, whether it's in the living room, or anywhere else.
So how is that not a fire hazard? And
it's a huge fire hazard, right?
It's
a huge
violation.
Fire hazard. Yeah, it's a fire hazard. The fire department actually does zoning and housing in Laughlin as well.
And this is where you have to put your other hat on.
Right. So there's
wearing all that.
So it's a housing code violation. It's a health code violation. It's
Right.
a fire code violation. It's a building code violation.
Right.
And, since probably July, maybe a little bit earlier, maybe May, we have been working with this with the building department, with the health department, who are both county entities. Well, the health department is a health district, right? So it handles all of Hamilton County, many parts of Hamilton County, unincorporated areas and the like. The health or the building department, then obviously the fire department and housing department. And as we continue to move through this process, we're getting closer and closer to the step that citations will be issued. Findings will be sought in court to further address it when the essentially landlord or absentee landlord chooses to do nothing about it.
Now, how many apartment buildings would you say, or apartment complexes there are affected by in this condition?
So there is a 2-unit. So it's like a number 1 and number 2 building that are tied together. So essentially it is 2 buildings, but many people look at it as one. It's about 80 units there. And then at the other end of town, more the central portion of town, there's 2 buildings there as well. And then as you start going up the hill, again, they started at a place we call it 1 Mulberry Court. That's the address of the facility. They started there. They've spread to another apartment complex in the center of town. And as they start to fill that, they're starting to migrate their way up the hill into 3 additional apartments.
And the landlords and all these buildings are owned by different landlords, I'm assuming, right?
There's at least 3 different landlords involved.
So 3 different landlords, and you said that some are absentee or not local, or do you know?
Yeah, some are not local, some are local. The local ones have more of an intent to address it. The absentee landlords, the out-of-state landlords, generally have a way of working the process.
Do you know?
That's the hardest thing too, and even going through and doing just fire inspections. It's you have a vacant building and trying to track down that nuisance building that you've seen vacant for 2 years.
Right.
It's a nightmare trying to track that down.
Do you have any reason to suspect that the landlord is being paid by the unit or by the person, or do you know?
So
I like that.
We found out that one of them was being paid by the unit until it went over a certain level of occupancy, and then they got paid per each additional person.
So the landlord then would have a vested interest to cram as many human beings into that unit as possible.
Right.
And who is paying? I'm going to ask another dumb question, so forgive me.
Nobody will give us the answer to that question.
Is that being paid by an NGO, or is that being paid by your Uncle Sam?
Nobody will answer that question. We continue to push to get it, and
because I know here in Cincinnati, Catholic Charities help migrants out quite a bit, and most people don't know that.
Right.
And I don't know. So is this being paid by Catholic Charities or some other NGO, or is this being money that's the Biden administration, because that's who's in power? I'm not going to get too political because that's usually not what I do. But I just was wondering.
Never heard of her.
I just was wondering, are they getting a check from Washington or Columbus? Are they getting a check from an NGO? And I mean, and these are things you're just still, so it's been going on now for a while, and you still don't seem to have. I'm not criticizing you, because in the layers of bureaucracy you got to filter through. Do you get this feeling that they don't really get? I mean, forgive my French here. Do you get the feeling that no one really gives a shit what you're dealing with?
Yep.
Imagine that.
That's perfect. That's
Right.
Yep.
Well, and you know where we're at with it. I mean, if you look at this from an enforcement standpoint, right? I mean, we want to know where the check's coming from,
Sure.
but do we? And the other side of it is, from an enforcement standpoint, for me, it doesn't matter, right? I mean, if there were, I don't know, if there were 400 Mauritanians living in this building under safe conditions, with fire doors that close, with working smoke detectors, with working carbon monoxide detectors, with proper cleaning of the kitchen, their cooking methods are heavily relying on grease, right?
Ain't question. Yeah, they're definitely in question.
Yeah, I was going to get to that here. I was going to get to.
Don't be jump ahead on you, but right.
Oh,
so
no.
we haven't really got an answer as to where they are, and then the different, we have a better relationship with one of the property owners than the other. And in full honesty, we haven't even taken on the third, fourth, and fifth building right up the hill yet, because you're dealing with a fine number of resources.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, we're pulling an inspector. Actually, we're pulling a supervisor from the health department in to address this because it's reached that level in them. And when he's dealing with this non-compliant property, who literally has fixed barely anything from a 30-page inspection report. And I'm just throwing numbers. Like, it's an exaggeration maybe, but we're close. I have never, in 35 years in the fire service, I've never written an inspection violation so long
right.
as one of these buildings.
So is that the county health inspector that's helping you?
Right. So it'll be the county health inspector, the county building department, and then fire, zoning, and health would be.
Do you get the opinion that the county of that's Hamilton County, I imagine, right?
Correct. Sir.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure it didn't switch. Do you have the impression that are you getting a lot of help from the county on this issue, or I know the inspectors are probably being helpful. Is the county concerned about this at all?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Right. So you mentioned early non-government organizations and religious faith-based organizations. We started this off prior to making any inspection, dealing with a weekly meeting with those groups, and once we started the enforcement, there are times that maybe there's a difference of opinion on how it needs to be addressed. So we've politely removed ourselves from that meeting and are focusing more on the enforcement side of it now. The county has been heavily involved in that and continues to be heavily involved in assisting us. There's a meeting coming up either this week or the next that the assistant county administrator and deputy county administrator are getting set up, and I met with them earlier this week. The county is very well aware of it, and in my opinion, at this point, is being a great partner, the best that they can, right? Because they're just one level up from us, right? Nobody called the county and said, "Hey, by the way, we're going to dump off 1,500, 2,000 Mauritanians." And
now, in these apartment buildings that we're speaking of, would you say that they were, full with, you said there were some migrants there, but are migrants displacing local residents that were living there, or
100%?
And because if someone is being paid for, now, again, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, and many people would.
You also didn't get the rule. You didn't get the rule. If you say 100%, you have to take a drink.
Oh, there
you
just
did.
There you go.
I'm drinking water, but okay.
I'm drinking iced tea, but
that's all right.
So my question is it causing? If a landlord can put as many people in a unit and get paid by the head, is it affecting rents there in Laughlin? Are you seeing the rents going up, or are you seeing just that they're filling them up with migrants because they can get more money and the local people don't have a place to live?
So, I'm familiar that one of the properties was charging more per head. I don't know that they still are. We've advised them that was illegal. That once they were going over the occupancy. So my hope is that he stopped that. The other one, I don't know that they're doing that, but I can tell you that my understanding is they're getting about $1,100 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment.
Jesus.
That seems to be a pretty healthy rent. Is that above what was normal there, or is that about normal?
I have to hope that that's above what's normal. I've been in, as Kiefer has, I've been in these apartments, and you couldn't pay me $1,100 to eat dinner there.
No.
Okay.
Fuck no. And I'm going to tell you, my fucking
I have lots
mortgage
of questions
on
here.
the house that I fucking rent to my buddy, just a little bit over that, but it's a bi-level, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath.
Yeah, I suspected I knew the answer.
I'm going to
Just
say
wanted to
go
make
fuck
sure.
yourself.
I just wanted to make sure everybody kind of grasped.
Yeah.
where I
And
was
then
I
you-
also didn't tell Doug that this is a very open
yeah.
podcast.
Yeah, this is we there's no sacred.
Drop it as you want.
So let me ask you. You mentioned before their cooking habits, and I'd like to ask you, what particular, and you don't have to get too specific if you don't want to, because I understand you're in government. Is there any, how should I phrase this? Like, are there any habits they have that are concerning to your local residents? Are they causing, like, are there any clashes between, I guess I would say, cultures that's happening there in Lachlan? Maybe things that they do. I don't know. I don't know what's common in Mauritania. I'm not sure.
One thing that we've learned, and again, there are some Mauritanians that, for lack of a better word, I've called them the village elders of this population.
Okay.
We have a decent relationship with them. I mean, again, as we move more towards enforcement, it gets a little bit challenging at times. But speaking with them, we've learned that for the most part, this is a very religious group.
And that would be Islam, right?
Islam is my understanding.
Okay.
Very religious. They do not smoke. They do not drink, or at least the majority of them don't.
Okay.
Don't. And if they were going to, they would, there's a section of woods behind them where they live. They would go do that. They wouldn't do that out in the public.
Okay.
The police chief and I have a great relationship, talk almost daily. We're not seeing huge crime issues associated with them. What we are seeing is littering and jaywalking. I mean, if you, Willie Cunningham has been speaking about West Wyman Avenue and on his show a few times, and it's absolutely nothing for one of them to just walk out in traffic. I was sitting at a red light at Wyman and Wayne this week looking, and I watched 15 people shoot across the street. And I'm not saying Lachlan's going to go out and we are going to have to enforce jaywalking laws.
Well, I mean, think about it. It's not. You're not looking to give a ticket for jaywalking, but what if let's be fair here.
It's a safety issue.
It's a safety issue. If you're driving along and someone darts out in front of your car because you're not expecting someone, in the middle of the street to come running out in front of you, your life is fundamentally changed because you now might be responsible for killing somebody.
Or you luckily stopped and the person behind you
didn't
just smacked into your car.
So I mean, there's lots of let's make sure everyone understands correctly that you're not looking at this from a revenue stream perspective. You're like, look, this is a fundamental public safety issue,
right? And the public nuisance, right? I mean, it's safety being the paramount to that, but right.
And you said they litter. I mean, they don't have the same, so they don't. Where trash cans, I guess, aren't readily accepted in Mauritania or available, and they just don't know what they are, or they just don't give a shit. Or
yeah, I don't know. And again, going back to the gentleman we're able to speak to and inform them, hey, look, this is an issue. He kind of lays the law down a little bit for them, and then we see a little bit better going on. So we've never in my life did I think that one of the big topics for my week would be how many garbage cans we're going to buy and put in an area.
Right.
You buy some more garbage cans to put in that.
I imagine, and
or do you have to set up a meeting with the village elder?
Well, but the other thing is, you're a community of 3,500 people. I imagine that your resources are probably finite, and you don't have a budget item to go buy another 100 trash cans to set out, and not only set out, but then empty and maintain and everything else.
Right. So it's a huge. It's a huge tax or a bigger tax on our public works staff.
Right.
We've been right sizing, right? We have them down to a staffing level now we think is appropriate for our town, but that doesn't leave a lot of time to go out again, pick up trash in the street, 3 times a week in an area that we wouldn't do anywhere else, right? So, but to your question, there haven't been huge crime issues associated with the population.
So you don't notice anybody. So unlike unlike the Haitian situation up there in just north of us near in Springfield, you know, you don't have, you know, pets being taken or keys.
Our dogs and cats are safe.
Thank God. You know, that's what I wanted to get down to the bottom. Now, you did mention something I want to go on. Oh, go ahead.
In the Fox article, you talked about, you know, the fire safety, you know,
Sure.
the fires that I may or may not have been on, where somebody has had to jump out the window, or, you know,
Right.
you literally said in your article that you had people crawling over firemen going down the hallway.
Right. So the one Mulberry Court, you know, it's been out there enough that this is where it is. I don't think anyone would be surprised that we said that. You know, maybe, I don't know, a day seems like a week, a month seems like 2 hours sometimes,
Sure.
right? But about a year ago, we responded to Mulberry Court for a working fire in a kitchen. The fire had extended into a second unit because they had broke a door into the wall to make a unit bigger. No building code, no
permit, no nothing. Just open the wall.
Absolutely no permit. Right.
Yeah,
so now we have you know, 2 apartments that are off. Flames are coming out of the door, starting to hit the hallway.
Oh wow!
And again, 4-story unit, right? So this, by most aspects, is a mid-rise building by firefighting standards. Our guys got on scene, did a phenomenal job stretching a hose line down the hallway. Lieutenant goes ahead of them, finds the fire apartment, controls the door, goes back to get his crew and says, hey, the fire is 4 doors down on the left-hand side. Turns around to start pulling hose, and the next thing he has is some guy climbing over top of him.
Oh my God.
And, you know, we have all of this on video. It wasn't one, right? So, you know, someone had called 911. There's a fire, delayed reporting the fire. Fire station's probably a minute and a half, best case scenario, away from the property. So, you know, you're 2-3 minutes into this, and these guys are still evacuating the building. And there are literally this is 11:30 in the morning fire. There are literally hundreds of them around the building. So, you know, again, our guys are advancing a hose line in, and people are climbing over top of them and running past them as they're advancing the line. And then the other apartment complex, more towards the center of town, the fire, in all honesty, was not related to the Mauritanian population, but was another family that was inside the building.
Yeah,
right.
That happened.
Right, quick moving fire.
Well, but you mentioned, that's why I wanted to ask you. You mentioned their cooking habits. You said they tend to fry a lot of stuff, right?
Right. And this fire was related to that, right?
That was my question. They you know, a small kitchen, a lot of people, right, in a unit. They're frying a lot of things. I don't know if it's gas or electric, doesn't really matter.
Right.
But, you know, not something it's not like they're baking. They're not baking cookies in the oven.
Right.
They're frying in oil, which is number one, dirty. Number two, which I'm not saying it's the cleanest thing, but it's a fire hazard.
Yep.
And the longer you do it in a confined space for a bunch of people, that the unit's not designed, the kitchen's not designed to feed 30 people or whatever it's feeding. I'm saying that grease builds up, you know, things happen, things get left on, and boom. Did that apartment unit then have to be shut down, condemned? What was the status after that?
Yeah, so we were a year past then. They've yet to, the building itself was not, right? So they lost the 2 units that were involved in the fire, 1 unit below that. To date, we have yet to get a permit to return those units to service.
How do you know they're not just living in there? I mean, are you sure?
We will find that out on the reinspection here later.
There you go. Wow.
That's exactly right. The fucking reinspection. That's where it always hits.
Wow.
Right. So, and then to compound the issue too, like, so this is obviously a pretty involved fire. We have been there for several smells of smoke or smoke in a hallway. Our firefighters arrive on scene. They're checking, you know, obviously, they're generally, I guess I'd say, fearful of government, right? So they don't understand the fireman's there to help you, not cause any issue for you. Whether they're afraid of the firefighters, they're afraid they're getting in trouble. Maybe they had a stove fire that they picked up and threw in a closet, right? So our guys, instead of going in and saying, hey, we're going to apartment A, and there was a stove fire. Okay, let's remove some smoke for you. Let's make the conditions better for you and move on. no, we're going to search this entire building because we're not going to walk away at 7 o'clock at night with a significant smoke issue inside of the building.
Yeah.
And then they just quote unquote happen to find a fire in the closet.
Oh my God.
Right. It's out. Right. Thank God it's out. But what if it wasn't? Right. So, it's and again, the other side of that, and I feel it's important to say is that, if you look at this and you would say, well, hey, why don't you go out and educate them? Right. Why don't you have, a multilingual public education campaign? And that was my intent on day one coming in. The turnover of them is pretty high. It appears to me that, for lack of a better term, Laughlin is maybe like the staging area where they live until they get a work permit, and then they move on to somewhere else. Because again, why would you live with 10 or 12 people?
Then they're going to Chicago or New York or whatever.
Right.
Wow.
We've heard of a chicken processing place in a neighboring county and a Amazon warehouse in the area that are inclined to hire them, right, once they are legally able to work. So then they move out of our area.
And what's their language skills? I mean, do they speak any English that you've?
So generally you'll find a few people that speak English very roughly.
Okay.
And I don't have the notes in front of me to go back to it. They speak 4 languages, one of 4 languages. In order to communicate with them, we have contracted a service on a telephone to be able to, we say something on an EMS or on medical run, and then they're able to communicate with an interpreter. Fulani is one of the big ones for them. They do speak, some of them speak a dialect of French.
So any time that I made a run in there, and I'm not
right,
doesn't bother me to say it. Anytime I made a run into one Mulberry Court, there was somebody there that was translating.
Right.
Like you said, the elders.
Yes.
They were able to tell me just hey, what's hurting?
Mm-hmm.
What's the issue? Like very, very broken, but enough. Give me a
right.
name, and then let's go.
I got to add, what do you see as, because I mean, first of all, thanks for being, thanks for shining the light on, I want everyone to understand. And the reason we're bringing it up, first of all, light is a good disinfectant, which apparently that apartment complex needs a lot of. But my question to you is, what do you see as is there a long-term solution other than stop bringing all these migrants into a small community that can't handle it?
So really, that's it. I mean, we're at the point in the village when there's literally been that conversation. Hey, do we put a press campaign out there, PR campaign out there that says, hey, look, stop coming here. We don't have room for you.
Right.
I've heard, I don't know this to be the case. I heard there's TikTok videos. They're like, hey, come to Cincinnati, come to Laughlin. I've heard that from reliable people. I hate to think that that's true, but I mean, there literally is no more room. And, we kind of got into this before and got down I got down a rabbit hole maybe, but, when they move in, their culture is much, much different than ours.
I imagine.
So, if you or I had lived in that apartment, and I'll tell you, one of the apartments my grandmother lived in when I was a young kid,
wow.
Police officers and firefighters, from our community, when they were getting their first job as a law enforcement officer, lived in one of these apartments.
Wow.
It was it
was the entry level place to go live, or retiree place to go live, empty nester, whatever it is, safe, secure, probably fairly clean at the time. Would you describe, and I'm just asking your personal opinion here because you're not a health inspector, but you've been in these, you've been in most of these units, right? I mean, you've responded. Would you stay? You mentioned earlier, would you stay there even if they couldn't pay you to stay in these units? The cleanly factor is probably fairly obscene. Is that correct?
I would sleep on a park bench in the middle of town in the freezing winter before I slept one night in one of these apartments.
I'll
take that as a no.
And I'll straight up say it's fucking gross. He can't say it. Can't say it, but I'll say it. It's fucking gross.
Has there been disease issues that you've heard of?
Not that we're aware of. There have no, not that we're aware of yet.
Okay.
that obviously is a concern, right?
Yeah.
You have a huge population.
Can I ask you without putting you? Fuck, I don't want to put you
Don't
on
put
the
on
spot.
the spot.
I don't want to put you on the spot.
Then don't.
But
No, don't say but, because that but means you will.
Fuck.
No, because you've listened.
No, we're good. We're good.
Look,
we're good. No,
we're trying to let everybody
this
know.
This is perfect for.
Well,
so Doug, so we have multiple outlets that are watching this, listening. And
we have millions, not millions, but whatever.
But we'll put the audio out. But we have people from all over the country.
Yes,
and not touting our shit, but we've got a loyal fan base.
But
and they're from all over. So I wanted to bring you on when I saw that your Fox article came up, because the migrant issue is a fucking big deal.
Well, because look, we're
coming up on election.
We're coming up on election. Okay,
it's huge.
We've been talking about a lot, and part of the concern from a lot of our listeners and Jason and myself, it seems like currently this administration, at least the one that's in power currently and one that's running for power to continue this, it seems like they don't really care. And I'm speaking broadly here, but it just seems like they don't care about Americans. I mean, it seems like your community is being, for better or for worse, overrun by, I'm not saying these people are bad people. That's not what I'm saying. You said crime is not an issue. However, safety is, and your resources are, and you only have, the compassion ends at some point. And is it compassionate? I ask you a question. Do you think that these people living in those conditions is compassionate in the least?
No, I mean, no. I mean, I think when they're here, those that are trying to take care of them have the best interests at heart, right? So some of the religious-based organizations, faith-based organizations, some of the non-government agencies, the government agencies, honestly. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you the health department doesn't care about these people. They do.
No, they only have so many resources.
Right. There's only so many resources for them to be able to put out. Right. From our standpoint of this, I mean, this comes down to two things, maybe three. Number one is it has to be safe, right? We can't just stack people in the building. And I've said this to Channel 12. I've said this to Channel 5. I've said it to the Washington Post, the Fox Digital. We were on Fox and Friends this morning talking as well.
Oh, wow.
It's crazy how much attention this is getting, but I think it needs it, right? So the issue comes down to these people are not living in safe conditions. I'm not trying to be dramatic in this, but every time the pager or my phone go off at night and it says One Mulberry Court, I'm like, God, please let it be an EMS run and not a fire. Because I'm telling you right now,
if it's a bad fire, I mean, it's just not safe.
We will have a disaster. If we have a fire there, we will have a disaster there.
And I may or may not work close to you. And when I'm on Mulberry Court, I'm like, son of a bitch.
So,
but I mean, we're going to have a disaster to the point that's probably going to be at the magnitude of an airplane crashing, right? That's You're looking at several hundred to 1,000 people living in a building that are not going to be able to get out. And then we're going to put our firefighters at risk, because I know all of them, including those that are around us, they're going to do everything they can to get those guys out of that building.
Right.
Let's just hypothetically say you've got, I'm going to pull like Cincinnati numbers.
Right.
A one alarm, you get 28 guys or whatever it is on your one alarm. Then you're throwing 2 more engines and a ladder.
Yeah.
So there's, 4, 8, 12, another 12. That's not enough people, dudes on the ground, to be able to get all of those people out.
Yeah. Especially when they're overcome. And then our hospital system.
Yes. Yeah, that's the other question. So obviously it's scary.
It's scary.
So obviously now these people don't, I'm not sure what resources. It seems like they're getting at least money to go shop and buy food. Someone's delivering food there. for them to cook. But my question is, so when they get sick, obviously these people have health issues. Are they just overloading the emergency room?
They're overloading 911, and then they overload the emergency room. So we had a upper member of our village staff was at a regional medical institution recently, and when our ambulance, when they found out they worked for Lachlan, they're like, "Oh my God, I hate it when your firemen come here." And they're like, "What are you talking about?" No, your guys are wonderful. We love them.
It's not the guys.
But they keep bringing these immigrants in here that have a toothache, a headache.
Right.
They have a cut on their foot.
Right.
You know, they just don't feel good. Something that you or I would take Tylenol for.
They're going to the emergency room.
Primary care physician the next day.
Right.
Their primary care physician's 911.
Right. See, and that's what folks need to realize, and that's the thing that kind of pisses me off. Well, actually, it doesn't kind of piss me off. You know, we are trying to shine the light of, and you're helping, because this election coming up is going to have very far-reaching consequences. And I fear, and I'm not saying that, you know, Donald Trump. No, I'm just going to get political for a second. If the Republican wins, I don't know that this could stop tomorrow, but I think that there would be steps taken to slow it down and address your concerns, because obviously we're giving the visas out like chiclets, and they're coming here, and we've got big problems, and one party seems to not have a problem with it, and one party seems to want to address it. And you're putting a face. So thank you for being here today. Right. And we could talk forever. We've spent almost an hour now with you. You've put a face, because too many people are under the misconception, especially here in Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. This doesn't affect us. Oh, Springfield's a ways away. Lachlan, oh, that's nothing. I've heard, you know, oh, that's by Wyoming. I don't live there. But, you know, this could happen anywhere, and it's happening all over the United States.
Anywhere,
and we just don't hear about it.
Anywhere in the 513 or
anywhere.
We're hearing all these other stories.
We're hearing it up in Northern Ohio. We're hearing it in Findlay. Yeah. We're hearing it in Springfield. Now we're hearing it here, that, you know, we're not anti-immigrant, but I think there's a fundamental problem somewhere. The system is broken where, for example, Springfield, we think bringing in so many thousands of people and dumping them in one community is not a big deal. There's not going to be an impact there. You know, okay, we got sidetracked maybe a little bit with the eating of the cats and dogs, which, true or not true, time will tell. But at the end of the day, I don't think anyone mentioned I'm sure their hospitals are being overrun. Their emergency rooms are being overrun with people that are sitting there with non-emergency causes or ailments but they don't have anywhere else to go. And much along the same thing that your community and your hospitals are now experiencing, you know, people don't equate, they don't connect the dots, and they don't think one step ahead. So, and not to mention, have you been able to calculate? I mean, and maybe you know, and you just don't want to say, and I'm not going to ask you for a firm number, but this has had to have a financial impact on your community, I imagine.
Right. So this is to close out the other side of it, it's about a 12% increase in emergency responses for our department.
Okay.
Because of these two properties. They are a bright red dot in the middle of our heat map. Right. Wow. As soon as my computer screen pops up and the first thing you see are these two locations, and you're like, man, what's going on there? We should probably do something about that. But so what's the cost to our community? So Lachlan's this old community, right? We've got a lot of old stock of housing, a lot of rental housing. About 46% of our residential houses are non-owner occupied, right? So they're rental. And that takes a task on code enforcement. We're unable to address a lot of that stuff because we're dealing with, you know, the immigration issue as this goes on. A little bit earlier, we talked about how when they move into an apartment or they move into an area, the other cultures that live there don't accept that and then move out. So when they move out, we're losing our tax-paying citizens,
right,
for immigrants who are unable to pay tax, right? They're unable to work. So looking at that, if you took a median income in Lachlan, I think on the I had a note this morning, on the 2020 census was 44,700, right? 44,700. Just using that number, if you took 200 apartments that are affected by this,
Right.
200 apartment units. That's $9.9 million in income that's now gone, which equates out to over $200,000
revenue.
in revenue to the village of Laughlin through income tax.
Wow.
So, are we losing something? Yeah. I mean, again, they're not all making $44,000, right? So we're losing somewhere from $125,000 to $200,000 annually because of this problem. And then we have an increase in services for our fire department. We have an increase in petty crime issues with littering and with jaywalking, etc. And then just complaints of loitering, although that's difficult to enforce for our police department. Our public works department is cleaning the street up multiple times a week, right? There's really not a system or a service in our village that they're not affecting.
Wow.
Exactly.
Again, you don't mind if there's 200 of them, right? If there's 200 of them and they're living within the occupancy level of the apartment and there's something to subsidize what they're doing, hey, I get it.
Yeah.
But when it's the numbers that they're at and the challenges that it takes, I mean, if it could happen to us, you mentioned before your viewers from across the nation, it could happen to them.
It's happening. What are you talking about? It is happening.
So I mean, it's
and I'm not going to pigeonhole you into anywhere, but we're going to roll into the whole migrant situation across the country, and we're coming into election season and all of this bullshit. But when I saw that you were on Fox, I was like, why no, Doug?
Yeah.
I'm going to reach out and let's just see what happens. But
absolutely.
But it's, I mean, and obviously it's very close to me, but I'll say it and you don't have to say a word. It's fucking bullshit. It's bullshit that you cannot get money from the state, from the feds to fix your stuff.
Well, it sounds like, in a nutshell, your community's been, nobody asked you. No one said, hey, this is coming. How can we help? Heads up, this is going to happen. And you've lost from your estimate, 150, 200 grand a year, plus or minus, of revenue. And you've had an increase of 12% on your EMS runs, which cost money, and everyone else is subsidizing that. Not to mention the trash, not to mention the safety and the jaywalking, not to mention the emergency rooms being overloaded, which is a cost as well to John Q. Public and the taxpayer. And you've put a very real face on a situation that I think is happening and is documented to be happening all over the country and is definitely going to be a factor in how folks vote this November coming up in 2.5 weeks.
And let's just say like a village of 3,500. And, some people may say, oh, $150,000 to $200,000 missing, not a big deal.
Oh, no, that's a big deal.
It's a huge deal.
That's a big deal. I think.
But then take it to a Chicago, to a New York, to
Springfield,
wherever. But like bigger cities outside of a small village, that's a huge number. How much more money is being just fucking literally just dropped,
and the communities
dropped out of the basement.
The companies, like you said, this is staging area, and then they're moving on. At least that's a great
statement. Actually,
that's what you can figure out. But you said that Amazon might be taking some of them at a local facility, and then I think you said a chicken processing plant might be taking some others. I'm sure that they're going to have tax benefits because that they're producing income there. They're going to be paying income tax. They should be anyway. And if they're being paid over the table, not under the table. So, they're going to reap the benefits. They're probably the ones that are in favor of this, but because maybe the labor rate might be cheaper. I'm not sure, but you don't have there's no benefit to your community right now. None at all. Well, I thank you, sir.
All right.
Doug, I love you.
I appreciate you guys having us on. The information has to get out there. We have to.
That's why I wanted to do this. Even though we have many listeners all over, but we have a lot of local, And the local people need to realize it's happening in Laughlin. It's going to happen somewhere else.
Well, actually, to be fair, I was just with a couple on Friday last week, and they're from Wyoming. And other than maybe some of the public areas there in Wyoming that they said have a lot of people milling around, I guess was the kindest term I heard.
The kindest term.
And they did mention that the bicycles seem to be disappearing. I think that term was said, but I'm not sure if that's accurate or not. They weren't overly, involved in this. They seem like they were freaking out about it per se, but I know that Wyoming is right next door to you and it's a very affluent area. God, no one would want to have, the last thing you would want to have happen as fire chief. You don't want your community making the news for some huge disaster that could happen at, like you said, your pager goes off and you're like, oh crap, please don't. And let's be fair. We're now coming in on the winter season where electric space heaters are very prevalent. And, when you have people sleeping all over the place, bedding all over the place, one of those things falls over or touches something it shouldn't touch, not to mention everything's probably covered in grease, whatever. But I mean, I'm being flippant, but I'm trying not to be. I'm saying you have it's a powder keg there. I mean, it really is a powder keg. I mean, look what it's done to your hair.
It's all fell out, bright and shiny.
You had a full head of hair 6 months ago. No, I appreciate you being on here, and any resources that we can help bring or focus attention. I think you being on programs such as this, such as Willie, such as Fox and Friends, you're very level-headed. You're not placing blame. You're just saying, hey, this is a situation that I'm dealing with and it's not right. And somebody should know about it.
Can only do what you can do. That's it, right? I mean, there's only so many hours in the day, so we'll keep pushing on. Thank you for the attention to the matter, and I'm glad we got on with you guys tonight. I appreciate the invitation.
Thank you, sir.
Doug, love you, buddy.
Love you too, bud. Take care.
We'll talk soon.
All right, appreciate it.
See ya.
Wow,
he's a good dude.
Yeah, seems like a really good dude.
Known him for a long, long time, and like I said, when I saw him on the Fox app, I was like, well, shit, I'm calling Doug. We'll see if he'll come on. But
someone online has some banter and says, local, do something. And that you're talking to the fire chief administrator for their village, and what do you want him to do? I don't know, but I mean, what do you want him to do? I mean, what exactly do you want him to do? I guess I'd be frustrated from the point of view that he could not expedite the condemnation process of the apartment complexes because, like you said,
it's a process.
When it's a absentee owner, especially, they lawyer up, things go into the courts, and they take a very long time.
Well, and again, like even me doing a fire inspection of a vacant building, right. I have to go to the auditor's site. I have to figure out who owns it.
Right.
Try to get that number. That number may or may not be right.
Right.
It's a fucking nightmare.
And then the question becomes, obviously winter times enforce the law. Well, that's a great enforcing the law is a great statement. The question is, does he go in? Does he go in? Obviously, a community of 3,500 people. I don't know what their resources are. Does he go in with the police and then, sweep the whole place, throw a lock on the door, and kick all these people to the street? Look, I don't know that we're going to have time to get to everything else today because we had a full show, but that ran long.
I don't even know what this radio guy is saying.
It's fine. It's fine. But I
appreciate you being here.
I want to try to answer some questions, and I'm frustrated too. Maybe as being in government, I kind of saw where things that maybe other people, not that it's special, but you're like, okay, who's paying for this? Who's, and most people wouldn't have said, if you live near there, and then you have a night, let's say that something happens to you and you go to the hospital and you're waiting in line because there's 10 people there that shouldn't really be there because they don't have life-threatening injuries, but they're using that as their doctor's office. That's frustrating. That's very frustrating. 10 people that are not paying taxes that did come here under the auspices of having being a emergency status, right? Claiming asylum.
Right.
But it seems like to me, very rudimentary and from a high level, that our immigration system is being abused by people that know how to work the system.
Fucking A. Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
And if you want to say, well, yes, not paying taxes, no services, that's not the way the United States works. We have an administration, you have an election coming up here that one party, I want to say Kamala Harris, has said that she wants to, give things to the immigrants and give to the people that have come here illegally and legally. And, you're going to pay for it. You and I are going to pay for it. And you have another president candidate
or the $15,000 fucking prepaid fucking credit card. That
right. Or you have another president candidate that wants to deport them and have them come here legally through a process. And look, not to speak about just the humanity of the situation, it tears you apart, because think about, you're living in situations. I don't think they want to live that way. Do you? I don't think they want to live 30 people in a unit that's designed for 4 or 8 or 10 or whatever.
I honestly think it's what they're used to.
Well, it might be what they're used to, but I can't imagine that they want that. Yes. You voted Jim Neal. Great.
Again, I have been in those apartments. And I've seen them, and is
it nasty?
Oh, it's so fucking gross.
It's just nasty.
It's you walk out and
you want to take a shower.
When you get back, you take a shower.
Oh, gross. Scabies.
It is so bad.
Well, we had a lot of things to talk about today, but
we do have to hit this.
Which one?
Even though we're running a little long.
We're running a little long, but we'll finish it up, and it's getting close to my bedtime. But here's the deal. And football's coming on, Sunday Night Football. But here's the deal. So this gets into this subject. The reason we brought it up, because number one, we thought it was important. As we were watching football this weekend, okay, I was watching some college games. You guys have been watching pro sports today. The commercials are driving me literally out of my mind.
Oh,
okay, out of my freaking mind.
I wish there was a way, like after you early voted, that they could
delete you from the commercial list.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I voted.
That'd
so they put a screen blocker up for you.
That would be awesome.
I'm sorry, the house that you're trying to advertise to has already voted, so please go eat shit. But anyway, so here's the deal. My bedtime usually around 9:00. Here's the deal. So I'm sitting there watching these commercials, and what's jumping out at me is the Democrat Party and the Democrat candidates have just no gall about lying. They flat out lie. I'm just going to say it like it is. Democrat candidates and the Democrat Party in general lie. And we have some examples of that. And these are the things that are going to not necessarily back it up or prove the point. But for example, we have Nancy Pelosi was on a Fox interview, and Nancy Pelosi said this or talked about this. Now, we remember how Nancy Pelosi got Joe Biden out of the race, right?
Because she said so.
Is she sober here?
Well, that's
debatable.
Debatable.
All right.
We might hit an ad, maybe, potentially.
Yeah, because it's been a while.
These Medicare mailings are enough to touch the sky.
I let it sit there.
Yeah.
I have great respect for the president. I think his legacy is a very substantial one for our country. It is our legacy, too. I did not want that to be lost. Now, my concerns were around the campaign, not about the candidate. He's fabulous. But the campaign, I thought, was not going in the right direction, and I expressed my concern about that. It was up to the president to make the decision whether he would continue to run. He made that decision.
Okay. That is, let me just cut through the chase.
Was up to the president.
That is a lie.
Yeah.
And Democrats, again, have from the top on down, don't have a problem of lying. And when the commercials I was speaking of, to be specific, so several Democrat commercials, whether it be here or in Michigan, where I was a couple of days ago, they have, no matter who's running for the office, they say, Jason Kiefer supports abortion. I'm sorry, Jason Kiefer wants to make abortions illegal in every state of the United States. And if you elect Jason Kiefer, there will be no more abortions ever in the history of the world. Now, that's a lie. President Trump has said he's not in favor of a national ban on abortion. He's a big fan of what the Supreme Court did, that it's up to the states, and each state is responsible for setting the policy on abortion within the state's borders. He said that he would veto it if it came to his desk. That's not enough for Democrats. They're running that ad. The other one says, another ad says, dangerous Project 2025. Jason, would you say that I'm probably, for the people that you personally know, that I'm probably the most involved in Republican politics?
Yes.
Okay.
I've never
heard of Project 2025.
I've never heard it.
There's no directive that we've got. Like, shh, don't talk about 2025.
Well, it's like being a Mason. We can't talk about it because I'm a Mason. I am a Mason.
So no,
I can't tell you anything, but I know things. But
right.
I can't tell you.
And whether it's a candidate, another thing, or we have candidates here. We have, Greg Landsman's running some ads that I think are very dishonest. And
absolutely.
I'm like, where is the fact checking? I mean, if we put a picture up, a wrong picture, we're going to get, I put a picture up about what happened in Minneapolis and Facebook put a thing over it saying, oh, it might have hurt some people's opinions. So my point here is Democrats don't have a problem lying at all. Now, getting back to that subject, we had a big story last week. This is the one we're going to show. Big story last week. All we saw was that we had, you saw it, right? Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter cast his ballot today for who? For Kamala Harris.
He was super excited leading up to it.
That's right.
He was super excited
right.
on his 100th birthday.
That's right.
Leading up to.
That's right. That was the whole narrative. We saw it on the news. Jimmy Carter cast ballot for Kamala Harris in Georgia. Boy, the campaign's off to a great start. This is fantastic. Can we show a photograph of Jimmy Carter?
Video? Yep. Sure looks like he could make a goddamn vote.
But there's President Carter. Now, no disrespect to President Carter.
No disrespect.
No disrespect to him personally.
Let's watch this a couple times.
And with all due respect,
let's do this.
Oh, you're gonna make it bigger? Oh my God! I mean, I've seen more lifelike Halloween decorations. Okay, this is the man that they touted that went and cast his ballot for Kamala Harris. Yeah. Now, this should be used. If I was a Trump campaign official, I'd use this in a campaign ad, and I'd say, "This is the mental state of somebody that thinks that Kamala Harris would make a good president."
Yes. And just to be fucking completely clear, how is he doing a mail-in ballot?
How is he even?
He mailed his ballot in.
What did he do? Drool on it?
Right.
I mean, seriously.
But that's acceptable.
That is acceptable.
That's acceptable in Georgia.
And, well, it's acceptable in a lot of places. Well, in Georgia.
In Georgia, you don't have to fucking show
now,
ID.
I went early voted, and there was somebody in the booth. Now, you saw the way the booths are there. They're not very private. You're like right next to somebody else, and there was somebody helping their mom vote. Now, with all due fairness, the guy was reading the stuff to his mother, and the mother was saying yes or no. Okay. Yeah. And he said, "Mom, do you remember this is about that?" Okay. I have no problem with that. Let me ask you a question.
Our buddy Rob
is able to say
Josh Girth took
Rob Herking down there.
And guess what? Rob is cognitive.
Yes, he can tell you things. He can say
that things. Motherfucker is the Crypt Keeper, which is why that thumbnail.
Hold on a second. The Crypt Keeper actually speaks and walks and blinks. What meant? I mean, other than vegetative, what condition would you say he's in? Comatose?
Yeah.
Not capable of making.
But I literally thought he was dead. Like, that's the shit that I walk in on.
But his ballot counts just as much as your or mine.
Right. Which is, I think it's.
But the story, the Democrat narrative run by the mainstream media was ex-president Jimmy Carter happily cast his ballot today, sprung from bed, ran to the polling place, and filled out his ballot. It was a beautiful day. Everybody was amazed. Yes. More at 11.
More at 11.
I mean, give me a fucking break. I'm sorry. Sorry, Mom. I dropped the F-bomb.
That's all right. I do it enough. But they mailed his ballot in.
we
they
have,
mailed it.
We
said they mailed it.
Right. Well, I'm sure they did. Someone did. We have
Somebody.
locally. We have video here locally of what a Democrat school board member. I'm going to bring it back local here for a second, and this is a shortened version of our show tonight because we went long with the interview. But
that was great, though. That was awesome.
We have another Democrat set up here locally that was a school board member that Jason Simmons seems oddly preoccupied with sex and the subject of sex in schools, regarding sex and sex education. He's very, very, very obsessed with sex.
The abstinence plus one specifically, I had asked.
Plus, I did not use those words, and I did not suggest that curriculum.
Okay, that's crazy, but okay.
So here is my ask plainly. Would the board support Bob and Kim and the rest of the health curriculum team researching some medically accurate sexual literacy programs being used both in Ohio and across the country that we could potentially offer our students as a form of what we'll call abstinence plus sex education?
Amazing to me. This is local. A lot of times people don't focus on the lies, maybe because they think there's nothing they can do about it. This is local school board, and Jason Simmons used abstinence plus in January, February, March, April. But then in October, he told Sarah Jonas, board president, I've never said that term before. I don't know what you're talking about. And she reacted the way I did. Now, I will tell you this, having been on a board, obviously I was on the board of trustees, and for part of that period, D and I are not of the same maybe political persuasion, right? D is to the left of me and I'm to the right of everything, but that's okay. But if I felt at any time that D was lying in a public meeting, was lying or being a liar or just not being truthful, I would call her out publicly. How Sarah Jonas, the school board president, can maintain any decorum without this is what the Democrats do. They lie and they have no problem lying. Now, I want to show. Do you have those photographs I sent you? I'm kind of dropping this on you. So, and the reason I mentioned Jason Simmons locally here, the school board member Jason Simmons, there is, speaking of lying, there is a page here that lies by deception. On Facebook, there's a page here in Anderson, and it's called Advocate for Forest Hills. And I just wanted to show you. I wanted to show you. Yes, you do. I know I sent it to you. I wanted to show you the page. Damn it. And we might have to wait till next time. But go on. Can you go on Facebook?
You go Facebook and then just send it to me.
Well, you know what? So anyway, but anyhow, here's the deal. My dad's going to wash your mouth out with Bud Light for using the F word.
Well, should be Miller Lite.
Miller Lite. But
just FYI. But
let me tell you something. Don't mess with my pop. He'll kick your ass.
No.
But anyway, here's the deal.
I appreciate that.
So
I lost my dad a long time ago, so I appreciate the fatherly advice.
You like the attention.
Yes.
Here's the deal. The Democrats, this page, Advocate for Forest Hills, is a leftist page. They registered as a PAC and then changed back to a 501c3. They say on their page that they give the impression that they're affiliated with the school, because if you look at the logo of Advocate for Forest Hills and then you look at the Forest Hills School Board, both of their Facebook pages, they look remarkably similar. And the Advocate page in their about thing says that they don't they don't promote candidates or tell people, or I guess the word would be support candidates or endorse candidates. That's also a lie, because the Advocate page, Advocate for Forest Hills, is populated by nothing but a bunch of very, very liberal people. And the latest ploy that they're discussing, contemplating, is they're thinking about organizing, and we have the screenshots, and I will go public with the names here and share the screenshots once I get them to Jason. We were going to do it tonight, but we ran along with the interview. And what they're advocating is they want to circulate a petition to recall school board members that they don't agree with, because obviously they're not getting their way with the two very liberal school board members that they have.
To me, it's a
wham. I wish they would, because I think the public would just be repulsed by that. And I wish they would waste their precious resources. But we have some people here that are just focused, and that's why I'm saying
I may run for a school board. What do you think about that?
I have no problem. I think this videos from the show might hurt that, but
Yeah,
whatever.
right.
I think that here's the problem. The Democrat Party from the top, from Nancy Pelosi on down through the state level, through the local school board level, they all learn the same mantra. Lie. It doesn't matter. The ends justify the means. You don't have to worry about telling the truth because we're never going to hold you responsible. The press definitely isn't going to hold you responsible. And until the Republican Party and until conservatives learn this, we are going to be fighting with one hand tied behind our back. Am I suggesting that I think the Republicans should lie? No, but I think that you should be not recoil and not be scared and not be shy about calling out and naming names of those that behave like this. And I'm going to do this. I did it as a trustee. I'm going to continue to do it. I've done it now in my public life, my private life, and I am going to continue to shine the light on these people that operate in the shadows.
I love it.
And think that they can get away with it because folks are too scared to call them out on it. Well, you know what? I'm not scared. And I will call them out, and you're not scared. And we're going to call them out on it.
I'm proud to be friends with you, and I will help you do that.
And we're going to call them out. We're going to hold them accountable. We're going to say whose names they are, and we're going to put it out there. We're not outing anybody. These pages, they won't let me join their group.
They're all public, though.
But they put this stuff on Facebook, and I got a little secret for you. You know what? What's secret on Facebook? Nothing. So when you make your little comments, and then I get at the end of the day, when you make your comments and I get screenshotted this stuff from friends because we have moles everywhere.
Yes,
I'm going to use this information, and I'm just going to educate the public on what you're doing because you like to operate in the shadows on your secret pages that you think no one can see, but we can see it all. And I know your names. It's the same people I've been fighting when I was in office, the same people. Hell, one of them, I don't even know if she lives here anymore. I'm pretty sure Ann is down in freaking Florida most of the time. I thought she retired down there. She built her compound here. I thought she moved down to Florida, but I guess she's not done spreading her influence around here. And the other one, I thought she went through a divorce.
We call it cuntitude.
And then the other one, oh, my mom's going to kill you on that one. And the other one, I thought Dr. Rasmussen got a divorce and moved on to some greener pastures, but she's now meddling in local affairs again. She didn't screw up the school board enough when she was on it. She now is going to try to start meddling again in it. So we have a real battle coming up, not only this November in less than 2 weeks, a little bit. We have another battle coming up. Guess what? A year and 2 weeks. School board, 2 trustees up for election.
All right. Trustee or school board? Where should I go?
Flip a coin. I'll tell you. You know what? Let me tell you something. It's a toss. Depends on what our current trustees want to do.
All right. Well,
if our current trustees want to run for re-election, I think they've done a fantastic job. Yes. I'm a full fan of Josh and Lexi.
I would never go against either one.
You know what the most thankless, you want to know the most thankless position there is in any local community? School board. It's thankless. It's absolutely thankless.
Yeah, you get fucking yelled at all the time.
Well, it's not just that. You got to deal with, first of all, you've heard of the squeaky wheel. Well, if you only knew the nut jobs that squeak on the school board meetings, they should be, half of them, or not half, but a large portion of them should be freaking institutionalized.
So let me ask you this question.
How they were able to I got to be honest with you, how these people were able to figure out fornication successfully, I have no idea. It makes me sometimes question that God is benevolent. I think God has one hell of a sense of humor because some of these people have children, and I'm like, how is this possible? You can't even blow bubbles. Yet you were able to figure out what goes where and why.
So
Randy, I don't know you, so you're kind of like.
Do you think I could?
Randy's a big talker.
Do you think I could make school board?
Sure, I don't see why not.
All right, cool.